But first, to John Hinderaker, the author and editor of the Powerline blog and president of the Center of the American Experiment. He joined me a little earlier today from the States. John, great to see you, and what a week it has been.
Rowan, it has been a crazy week. We have really not seen anything like it before.
So kick off your thoughts on the inauguration, and we might get into those leaks coming out of the White House about Biden's mental health. Who'd have thought? But kick off with the inauguration, John.
You know, it was very strange. Washington was almost a ghost town. There was hardly anybody there for it, except for tens of thousands of soldiers lining the streets. And I don't know anybody who watched or listened to Biden's inauguration speech. You know, it was just a very strange event. And the soldiers are still there. They're talking about having that military presence on the streets of Washington into March at a minimum.
Why?
And well, they claim to be worried about riots, but of course there were no riots, unlike 2017 when Trump was inaugurated.
Exactly.
There was a huge riot, and we've seen nothing like that. The whole thing is just very strange.
So tell us, I just mentioned there are already leaks coming out of the White House. We're into what, the first week? There have been a bunch of crazy executive orders. We can talk about those as well. But already, surprise, surprise, the leaks about the mental state of the President of the United States. Tell us, John.
Yeah, on his fourth day in office, the White House declared a lid, which means that there are no public events, no public anything. And I take it that means that Biden was just resting, you know. And so a few days ago, we saw the first of the leaks from the White House, where somebody told the newspapers that Joe Biden was working with a speechwriter, and there was a line or a couple of lines in a speech, and he got mad and he said, "That's terrible. Who wrote that? I would never say that. Where did you get that?" And the speechwriter said, "Well, Mr. President, that's from a speech you gave just 2 weeks ago." And
no.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, no.
What's interesting, Rowan, is not that it happened. I'm not at all surprised that it happened. What's interesting is that Biden hasn't even been in office a week before somebody in the White House, Kamala Harris's people, somebody is already leaking stories to the newspapers about his mental state.
I can imagine, you know, what's that red button over there that somebody just pressed? Mr. President, you just pressed it. God help us, I hope I'm only joking. Kamala Harris, so suspicion falls on her people because they want to get her into that presidential office as rapidly as possible. Is that right?
Well, everybody assumes that Joe Biden probably won't make it through 4 years. Who knows? I don't know, you know, but that's the conventional wisdom in Washington. And there are two ways he could go. One, he could die, or two, if he becomes disabled, the 25th Amendment could be triggered. And that's actually triggered by the vice president. And so, you know, there's a lot of speculation about. So
she's got all the cards. She's got all the cards in her hands. Unbelievable. Before we get on to Trump and the impeachment, just tell me your thoughts on all these executive orders. Trump was always labeled a dictator if he ever put out a presidential executive order, but Biden's throwing them around like confetti.
He's put out more executive orders in the first week than the last, 5, 6, 7 presidents put together, and some of them are very extreme. He's ordered essentially a complete halt to enforcement of America's immigration laws, you know, very radical. And he's ordered a stop to the construction of the Keystone Pipeline. Now, this is a pipeline project that was years in the making, fully permitted, now under construction, thousands of people working on it. And Biden has ordered it stopped. You know, can he do that? I don't know. But it's a really radical.
This presumably is to save the planet from catastrophic climate change and all of that stuff. How many jobs will be lost? And with the throwing open the borders is what he appears to have done. What does that mean in American cities, immigration, etc.? What does that mean?
Well, it means crime, and it means more pressure on the wages of low-skilled American workers. he's trying to undo some of the real achievements of the Trump administration, one of which was developing domestic sources of oil and gas and making America energy independent. Biden is trying to reverse that. He's banning fracking on federal lands. He's trying to stop the Keystone Pipeline. And likewise with immigration. We're getting a handle on this mass illegal immigration at the southern border. And now Biden is trying to turn the spigot back on.
That's unbelievable. Now, the impeachment of Donald Trump, this is part of the unity campaign and forgiveness and let's all be one and one together. Yeah, no enemies. Yes. Tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, the first impeachment was ridiculous, right, over a congratulatory phone call that Trump made to the new president of Ukraine. This one is even worse because, for starters, it's unconstitutional. I think the Constitution is very clear that an impeachment can only be brought to remove somebody from office. Well, Trump's already out of office.
Yes, that's right.
And, it is utterly pointless. And you know what it's like? It's like when in medieval Europe, they used to dig up the dead body of a heretic and burn him at the stake.
Oh, right.
Death wasn't good enough.
Great analogy.
And the Democrats are like that. It's unbelievable.
Digging up the dead body and burning it at the stake. John Heinderegger, always great to chat to you, those amazing insights of what is really going on in America. Thanks so much for being on Inside the News tonight, and we'll chat again soon.
Thanks, Rowan.